Hello everyone, and welcome to this orientation session on PSIR. So, as far as orientation sessions are concerned in general, the idea always is to understand as to why do we need to focus on an optional subject firstly, and also to understand whether you are fit to take up a certain optional or not. And there are certain reasons why we would choose an optional, and the reason should be mutual. It's not just that you choose the optional chooses you as well. And you know why I say this is because a lot depends on how well you score in an exam, in the optional exam, because optional papers can be rank deciding paper, and these papers, both of them 1 and 2, we have seen that people scoring 300 plus marks very easily have scored top ranks. And not just that, I mean, even if your GS was not that great, then optional will help you at least sail through to 200-300 ranks. So overall, of course, the idea of this orientation will be to explain to you about the importance of optional, and also to help you understand as to what would help you rather in picking up and deciding on this optional subject. Okay, so welcome to the online crowd. Hello everyone, all those who are watching online. If you have doubts, just let me know and we can proceed accordingly. So first up, as we said, let's begin by understanding this very simple idea of importance of an optional subject. Now think of the entire UPSC paper. I'm sure you're all well aware of the entire structure. You have your 4 GS papers worth 1000 marks, 250 into 4, and let's not forget the very dangerous essay worth 250 marks. Once these are covered, now you have the real deal breaker, or maybe a deciding factor, as you would say, the optional paper. Optional papers, 2 of them, 250 marks each. And it is here that the selections are made, and of course sometimes rejections also happen. See, if you look at the entire GS paper and you see the marks scored by a lot of people, depending on when the scorecards are released, and we see and collect information from at least all those aspirants who cleared the exam from this institute and multiple other institutes, we find that the GS paper marks for toppers will not have a huge difference. Of course, there could be somebody who could score, say, great marks in an ethics paper primarily, but GS papers 1, 2 and 3 will have almost similar marks. Of course, there are certain people who might excel more in one GS paper, but overall the balance is restored. And once the balance is restored, then ultimately we come down to understanding the idea. Other GS papers 1, 2 and 3, they have almost negligible effect in differentiating between various topics. It always comes down to either getting a very good score in your essay paper or a very bad score, vice versa, and excelling in the optional paper or doing miserably in the optional paper. Okay, because largely for the GS papers, the question patterns are not that in depth, and most aspirants prepare from similar kind of sources, and they have a similar kind of preparation pattern, time frame, etc. So that might not be a very decisive factor in differentiating between various categories of aspirants. So 500 marks worth your paper can be instrumental in creating this huge difference. Now also, before we move on further to understanding about PSIR and its importance, I would like to point out a very important factor. The optional pattern is vastly different from what you see normally. So, what is the entire pattern of an optional paper? See, for a GS paper, you have 10 questions worth 10 marks each, and you have 10 more questions worth 15 marks. So, these are what we understand as a standard GS paper. 20 questions, 20 different topics, and you have around 4,000 words to write in under 3 hours. Of course, in fact, a GS paper is more of a challenge of writing speed, thinking fast, writing fast. So you might not always be able to make your thoughts very coherent, right? But in an optional paper, you do have that liberty of time. So you can think properly, plan properly, and then execute your answers. Now, what is the pattern of an optional paper? So I'll just take optional paper 1. Now, these papers will have two sections. One is section A and the other is section B. Under section A, you have 4 questions, and under section B, you have 4 questions. Let's number them as 1. Now, the first question will have 5 sub-questions, A, B, C, D, and E. All these questions will have 10 marks into 5, 50 marks. Then comes question number 2, which will have 3 sub-questions, A, B, and C, 20 marks, 15 marks, 15 marks. Number 3, A, B, and C, and number 4, A, B, and C. And A, B, and C parts will have 20 marks, 15 marks, and 15 marks. So you see that you also have a 20 marker, 20 marks questions. Don't worry, you'll have 4 pages to write the answer there, so nothing to worry about. The exact same thing is replicated in the section B as well. In section B, you have question number 5, which will again have 5 sub-questions, A, B, C, D, and E, which means 10 marks each into 5 questions, you have 50 marks. And then 6th question, A, B, and C, 20, 15, 15. We have question number 7, again A, B, and C, and question number 8, A, B, and C. Now comes the interesting part. 2 questions here are mandatory. You have to solve question 1, you have to solve question 5. You can't skip these 2 questions. Okay. In fact, they cover the entire syllabus that is allocated for that section A roughly. So you have now question 1, which is worth 50 marks, and question 5, which is worth 50 marks. These 2 must be solved. 100 marks done. The paper is of 250 marks, mind you. We are discussing just the first paper. Second paper follows the same pattern. Now, we have 2 sections. It is mandatory to attempt 1 question from each section. This means you have to attempt either 1 from 2, 3, or 4, and 6, 7, 8. The choice is yours. So 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here. So 1 question from section A, 50 marks, and 1 question from section B, 50 marks. So that's also done. You have solved 4 questions, or if I can say 5 plus 5, 10, and then here 3 and 3, 6. Now you have to solve 1 more question, and that question can be from either of the sections. The last one is your choice. You can pick or choose either from section A or from section B. That will give you extra 50 marks. The paper is of 250 marks. This means that you don't need to solve all the questions. And this also creates a huge difference in picking up the right question. And that is actually a skill or an art, to pick up the right questions. Some questions might be more difficult and more challenging. Some questions will be easier possibly. Some questions where you have prepared very well your strong topic, a topic where you have prepared very well, you remember, you have revised properly, you have a lot of content, material, data that's of your interest. All these factors should play a very critical role in choosing the questions. So one important factor that also, not just for this optional, for any optional, should be to also have or understand the art of picking up the right questions. So this is how the pattern looks like, quite different, quite unusual from the GS paper standards. So yes, it involves, as I said, both not just knowledge, but knowledge about how much you know about something. Because sometimes when you read a question, you might feel, oh, I know it. And once you start writing, then you run short of words, short of points, examples, etc. So this is where you have to understand that a bit of time, pause, read, and then think properly before you put pen on paper, because again, there would be a problem if you attempt a wrong question, then you have to possibly carry the burden of it for full 1 year if you don't get selected, right? So this is the entire pattern. Now coming to the syllabus of the PSIR, I'll just give you a brief overview of what the syllabus of IR looks like. So we have, of course, two papers and 4 sections. This means this is the syllabus for section A of paper 1. And you can see the topics: political theory, meaning and approaches, theories of state. We have various theories of state to understand. Then broad concepts like justice, equality, rights, various categories of rights. Then democracy, concept of power, political ideologies, liberalism, feminism, etc. All these words that you see being thrown around, you have to cover these things, right? And then Indian political thought and Western political thought. So this is what is a part of your section A, political science paper. The second one is all about our country. So this is paper 1, section B. Section B deals with Indian nationalism, making of the Indian Constitution, salient features of the Indian Constitution, principal organs of the union and state government, grassroots democracy, meaning local self-governance, statutory institutions and commissions, all these bodies like NCW, NHRC, NCM, etc. Federalism, planning and economic development, caste, religion and ethnicity in Indian politics, party system and social movement. Of course, when you go through this, you feel like I'm just going through the entire polity syllabus and also a bit of history as a part of the syllabus. And that's actually true. Some history and a lot of polity. That's what section B of paper 1 is all about. Now we come to our second paper, which is about contemporary politics as well as international relations. So here again, we have section A, where we discuss comparative politics and the state in the comparative perspective, politics of representation and participation, globalization, and then approaches to study of IR, key concepts in IR, changing international political order, evolution of the international economic system, UN as a body, all its reforms, issues, concerns, regionalization of world politics, and contemporary global concerns. So paper 1 is more theory and also understanding about IR in general and through the global context. Okay, so paper 1 is all political science, completely static in nature, though yes, section B will have some aspects or other examples of maybe more current events, but not current per se, more contemporary events. Here we move on to the IR part. Section A is more on the theory part, understanding things like why countries take a decision, what affects countries, mostly realism in politics or IR, etc. And then coming to the second part, that is section B. This is section B of what? This is section B of your paper 2. This is India's IR, Indian foreign policy. So Indian foreign policy, of course, India's contribution to the non-alignment movement, then India and South Asia, India and the global South, India and the global centers of power, USA, China, USSR or rather Russia, India and the UN system, all the issues that we face with respect to expanding the UN or whatever. And then India and the nuclear question with great neighbors like China and Pakistan, and primarily Pakistan, because at least China is a more responsible uh, user of nuclear weapons, but we have Pakistan, which is a failed country completely. So nuclear weapons, though we don't really know whether Pakistan does have nuclear weapons in its own control or USA controlled it, but still, a country like Pakistan having nuclear weapons in itself is a big trouble, not just for India, for the world, right? So yes, India and the nuclear question, and then recent developments in Indian foreign policy. This is what the entire paper, section B of paper 2 looks like. So this is roughly the pattern of the exam as well as a broad idea of what the syllabus looks like. Now coming to what are the reasons why somebody should choose PSIR. Before I discuss why should you choose PSIR, I think a bigger question that I need to put in front of you is why or what do you think goes in the mind of an aspirant or your mind per se when you pick and choose an option. If you can point out those participants as to what all things do you think, what would be a factor that could be a deciding factor for you individually, that okay, this is the reason why I want to pick an option. Please type in some response. I would love to see and hear from you as to what is the reason for you to pick and choose an option. Score. K. Ravi Kumar says that I have to focus on the score, whether an optional is scoring or not. Interest to learn the subject and ability to understand and replicate. Sunita says that interest is my factor. That if I have interest in the subject, definitely I will pick up that optional. Okay, great. What else? Others? What is your reason? What would you base your logic on? So yes, interest and score pretty important as parameters. You know, when you pick up an optional, of course, the first thing that comes in the mind of every aspirant is it scoring, right? And they look towards the popular subjects only. Popular subjects. That's point one. It's only when you have a very special degree in certain course, etc., or maybe a professional degree that you would venture beyond the popular courses or the popular options. So yes, the popular options are the ones which attract most of the students. So there are majorly 4 or 5 optionals which attract the most students. Yes, PSIR by far is the most popular optional. It is taken by the most people who appear for the main exam. I don't know how many of them are taking PSIR before they take up the exam, but in the mains exam, at least the 2021-22 UPSC report says very clearly that, and by a huge margin, around 1600 odd people, 1570, 80 people who attempted the main examination had PSIR as the option. Then come other subjects like anthro, socio, and geography. Among these, of course, PSIR, anthro, and socio have almost the same kind of success rate, slightly higher for PSIR. Geography has a very poor success rate. That's actually true. And then you see a huge dip after these popular ones. And then you have option like history and all. But let me remind you, history has a very, very, very low success rate. Amongst all options which are taken by a large number of students, 300 to 400 students, history has a very, very poor success rate. But again, it does not really matter as long as you are comfortable in that subject. So yes, popular subjects. Then a student would also think, let's see, if I'm choosing an optional, it would be great if possibly, there was some GS overlap. GS overlap. Because if I could study my optional and maybe write a better answer in the corresponding optional, that would be amazing, right? Or maybe my work would get reduced drastically. If I read an optional, then a lot of GS things would not be required to be covered by me. Of course, that's great. So in that circumstance as well, an important factor is GS overlap. I won't deny it, definitely. It could be a factor for a lot of people, right? So yes, GS overlap should be considered, definitely. Now coming to something as simple as interest. See, interest is a very, should I say, dicey word, because I might like roughly the idea, because let's say I study polity and I say, oh, it seems interesting, it's nice. But am I up for the in-depth analysis and understanding of various theories, etc.? I might like, say, the topic Indian society, knowing all about caste system, divide, etc. But am I up for understanding those thinkers and what they thought of and what kind of theories they put forward? So an optional subject has a long journey, and there might be a situation where you might get bored in certain topics. Let's say you love history because you read modern India and say medieval India, and you were amazed by the complications of all these kings and how they would come up with various unique plans to take over different lands, etc., matrimonial alliances, and by hook or by crook, etc. But then history optional also has the Stone Age, Paleolithic Age, Neolithic Age. I'm sure very few would find it interesting, right? So every optional will have some parts which might be slightly on the boring side. That is something you have to live up and live with, frankly. Beyond that, yes, a general sense of interest is very important, because if I don't like geography as a GS subject, me taking geography as an optional will be a painful problem. Why? Because just because others are taking it, just because others are taking PSIR, and I hate politics completely, I mean, it would be a futile exercise, waste of my time, right? So interest, basic interest in the subject is required. But beyond that, let's never underestimate the aspect of skill. Some people have the skill of mugging up information, and there's nothing wrong in that. Somehow in our school days and college days, we have always looked down upon this kind of feeling that somebody mugs up, right? Even in the movies like Nanban or Three Idiots, whatever version you have seen, they constantly talk about rote learning is very bad. But think of it, without learning stuff, how can you apply it? I mean, let's say as far as maths is concerned, of course you have mugged up the formula, not in the literal sense mugged up, but because of repetitive practice, it's now set in your mind. The same thing happens. Because you keep on revising the topic, it's as good as you have mugged up the topic. So let's say somebody has a sharp memory that once I read a thing maybe 3 or 4 times, I can just replicate it on paper very easily. Maybe then history is a good option for you, right? Possibly anthro could be a good option for you. But somebody who has a more analytical skill, loves correlations, maybe opt for geography or an economics, who knows? And if you have average skills of mugging up, average skills of say writing answers, average skills of association, overall nothing great, but there is no shortcoming in some skill, then options like PSIR and sociology are meant for you. So also understand your skill level. If your skill level matches an optional, it does not really matter whether the option is scoring or not. You will excel in that. If you are somebody who has a penchant for language, you love the literatures, I think the best option would be to take a language or literature optional, right? So understanding yourself is very important. And yes, as I said, popular would also mean if an option is popular, you have easily available resources, books, coaching, material, test series, everything is available freely, plenty of choices. The more obscure, the more unique the optional, the lesser the material, the lesser the coaching facility, the lesser the resources, the more challenging it becomes. So why popular options have become popular slowly over the period of time is also because now we have plenty of resources available. I don't have to put in the effort to collect things from scratch. That also eases the burden because now I have to just chew the food, not prepare it from scratch. Okay. So yes, now coming to why would or how would PSIR fit this entire bill? So see, Jetty, interest in coding, judgments, committees, recent developments can add additional marks. Yes, yes, of course, of course. Quoting judgments can add additional marks, definitely. So now coming to why PSIR could be a good option. That's the very first point that we had set out to address in our initial discussion only. So why would PSIR be a great idea? See, nobody needs to sell PSIR simply for the fact that it is a subject which has the largest GS overlap. I mean, I know, and everybody knows it. In fact, I feel most aspirants take PSIR only because of this reason, that the GS overlap is amazing, right? So if you just go through the entire pattern, I mean, let's not discuss this point because this is all IR. This is your entire GS paper 2's IR syllabus, right? And of course, when you have read this and you have read the theory part of IR, a normal GS person's answer, a non-PSIR aspirant's answer is no match to your answer and your understanding. That's actually, of course, that is going to be the case always. Also, come to the section B. Lot of things here, this is all polity and governance. Again, we keep on seeing questions on federalism and grassroots democracy and NCW, NCM, etc. I mean, the level of preparation you have here, and then when you go and write a very basic answer in polity, of course, the answer for a non-PSIR aspirant is no match to an answer that you write, because you can also put in so much of information on the idea of justice, on the idea of equality. Let's say you're discussing a question on Puttaswamy judgment or the wide scope of Article 21. You can put in so much of information, quotes by thinkers, which a normal aspirant cannot. So yes, definitely, this is an optional which will help you in scoring amazing marks in GS paper 2, barring the social justice part. And even there, you do have a lot of other smaller topics too, lot of facts and a lot of data that we give to our students, should I give to students under justice and equality and rights, etc. These are all quotable in social justice section of your GS paper 2. So GS paper 2 is almost 90 to 95% covered as a part of PSIR. Then under GS paper 4 ethics, it's all about the qualities and values of justice and equality, etc., right? Rights, and of course governance, which is again GS paper 2, which is again PSIR. So anywhere from 25 to 30% of your paper of support can be provided in this paper 2. Why I say 25-30% is because case studies are almost 50%, right? So we have no command over case studies. Case studies depend on multiple factors, one of which is your command over the first part, the theory part, and application of mind. However hard you prepare, if you don't have that presence of mind and you have not practiced enough, you will falter in a case study paper. Whether your option is philosophy or PSIR or any other thing that is very close to understanding the theory part of ethics, right? So yes, GS paper 4, 4 optionals have a great contribution: philosophy, PSIR, public administration, and sociology. These optionals can contribute to your building of GS paper 2. That is actually true. And also, let's not forget the essay. Nowadays, with all these essays largely based on the comprehensive moral principles, etc., philosophy and PSIR play a very, very crucial role in giving you those additional pointers, quotes, etc., concepts, theories, which you can use to supplement your essay, make it an amazing essay. And I assure you, getting a 140, 115 essay is not a big deal for a PSIR option student, right? Apart from this, if you look at GS paper, so essay, I would say 30 to 40% coverage because of the quantity and also the quality upgrade that it will provide. Okay. Beyond that, in your GS paper 1, issues like social issues, or topics like social issues, Indian society, women's issues, etc. Again, once you study the theories where you discuss, say, feminism for that matter, etc., justice and gender equality, of course, you have plenty of examples and quotes and the basic premise of why these things happen, the patriarchal setup and everything. So you can use those pointers here also. I mean, 10% contribution here as well. Again, because of, the problem of history and geography being a part of paper 1. Same goes for paper 3. Paper 3, I would say, is a paper where you can maybe quote some examples, but largely because of it being a very distinct kind of paper on economics and science and disaster management, that I would not say, see, if I can quote some random quotation in some answer, I won't call it a PSIR contribution. Let's be very frank and clear also. So this would be a paper which PSIR has no command over, frankly. So look at the entire coverage. You are covering one full GS paper and large contribution to essay and GS paper 4. I think this is solely the biggest reason why people opt for PSIR. And of course, if you look at the toppers also, they're consistently being churned out for PSIR optional only. Because again, the syllabus is not that huge as history. Of course, I can't say it's as small as some other optionals, but it's very easy and lot of correlation. So once you get a hang of things, you tend to understand almost everything, right? So the understanding part is easy. Syllabus is not that wide. Plus it is also fun, especially the IR part is a lot of fun to understand. And once you read or have PSIR optional as your optional, forget this. In life also in general, it becomes so easy to have a wider understanding of everything, every news item. Because the backstory of it, the underlying moral philosophy of it, the underlying logic of it, it's all you understand. Why would a party take a certain stand? What was the idea of justice 20 years ago? How have affirmative actions or reservation policies changed over the course of years? What is justified? What is not justified? So this opens up your mind to larger things in life as well. So yes, in that sense also, this is a great option to take. So overall, primarily the GS overlap, it being a relatively easier optional, does not need very specific skills to understand. And also since it creates a large overlap, on GS paper 2, etc., makes it a pretty popular option. So these are, I would say, reasons why anybody would choose a option like PSIR. Now coming to our entire course structure. So for this optional, you would roughly need 350 to or anywhere around 350 hours of classes, wherein, let's come back here again, we take about 40-50 hours in understanding political theory and the concepts, then around 20 hours in political ideologies, right? Around 50 hours in Western political thought, around 50 hours in Indian political thought, and then some core theories of Indian government and politics. We take around 50 hours in understanding Indian government and politics, right? Then if you move on to comparative politics, smaller, around 30 odd hours for understanding comparative politics. Then core theories of IR will take around 50 hours, and then India and the world, the foreign policy, etc., would take you roughly 50 hours to understand. And beyond that, we can add 20 more hours to understanding things like, legitimacy, hegemony, power, ideology, etc. So anything from 350 plus to maybe 360, 370 hours is sufficient to cover the entire syllabus. And let me remind you, we are going to also be indirectly covering one full GS paper, right? So this is what is the course structure going to be like. Okay. Now, what is the expectation before, at least if you join my class, before joining the class, what is the expectation that I have from you, apart from attending the class regularly and revising? Before you come, and for all those people right now who are planning to join maybe in future, not just here, any coaching student, it's completely your choice, and you should make a choice after proper research, understanding, etc. So please read the book called Political Theory. This is an NCERT book of class 11th, though I also tell my GS batch students to read this book, but it becomes more important for you to read this book. It's a class 11th NCERT book. Please read it. Second is Politics in India Since Independence. It's a class 12th NCERT book. So let me just write it here. Political Theory. Number 2 is Politics in India Since Independence. So this is a class 11th NCERT book. This is a class 12th NCERT book. And one more class 12th NCERT book is Contemporary World Politics. So, Contemporary World Politics. This is also a class 12th NCERT book. So, if you can read these 3 NCERT books before you take up any PSIR course, I'm not saying it will be like amazing help to you, but yes, it would set the baseline proper and safe for you. So, till you decide on which course to join or not join, I would request you to at least go through these NCERT books, the bare minimum. See, beyond that, a lot of aspirants also tend to have this question that, sir, I want to know the book list, etc. There is absolutely no need to purchase books right now, especially. I think the faculty should guide you in this regard. Once you join the course, initially faculty's notes are in most cases more than sufficient to cover. Otherwise, giving you book list is not a big deal. A book by Andrew Haywood, the 4th edition of Political Theory, a very standard book. Andrew Haywood's 2 books can be purchased if anybody is interested. The one is A Political Theory and Introduction to by Andrew Haywood. This is the 4th edition. So please try to purchase if you want to. Again, my advice is don't. But if somebody is hell-bent that no, sir, I'll do it on my own, then of course. And also Political Ideologies. So that's the 7th edition, the book on political ideologies. Okay. Apart from it, a very popular book by O.P. Gauba on Indian political thought. So O.P. Gauba, both on Indian political thought as well as the Western political thought. Both these books can be purchased. And then once you move to your paper 2, then again Global Politics by Andrew Haywood. Andrew Haywood has one more book called Global Politics. I think right now they have the 3rd edition. So 3rd edition of Global Politics. That's something that can be purchased, but again, it's all not required largely. Then John Bayliss has a book called The Globalization of World Politics, an Introduction to IR. This is the 9th edition that they have. You can purchase that. The author is called John Bayliss, and the book will be the 9th edition. Okay. Then, in fact, there's a book called Understanding IR by Chris Brown, 5th edition. Go for that. Rajiv Sikri finally released his new book, Strategic Conundrums, Reshaping India's Foreign Policy. That's a great book. Harish Pant has a book, Indian Foreign Policy. That's a good book. In fact, there's a book called Engaging the World, Indian Foreign Policy since 1947. That's a great book. So, whether it is authors like Rajiv Sikri or Harish Pant, various such books are available. But the point is, this will be too much, and See, frankly, if you ask me that, sir, will it be okay that I do it on my own? Of course you can. It's just that the time it takes is longer, right? I mean, before coaching, also people were clearing the exam, right? The only difference is that now, since everybody is taking the help, and there's nothing wrong in taking help, and think of coaching as just providing you that help. It reduces the time frame that is required to clear the exam. It is not that it's a mandatory thing. It's not a must at all, right? But then you will have to reinvent the wheel, frankly, if you prepare things on your own. That's the real challenge. So the choice is yours. If you want to join, great. If not, you have these books. Please purchase and get going. Start immediately. No more waiting and collecting information randomly here and there. I want more information. One fine day, once I have every information, I'll then start my preparation. That day never comes. You have to start from scratch at some point of time with very limited information. Whatever resources I have, 2 pages of notes, one book, that's it. I'll start and I'll keep on adding to my notes. That's the whole idea. Okay. So I hope this session was helpful for you to understand the importance of PSIR. And in case you have any queries or concerns, feel free to let me know and I'll address those queries. So yes, let me put up questions, if any. Ravi, Raj, Shreya, Sunita, any questions? If you guys have any queries, let me know, or else should we end our discussion for today? What do you suggest? So it seems that we have no more queries. You can always reach out to the team and they might help you. They will get back at you. In case you want some issues to be resolved, you can call the team, get back to them, and they will try to get back at you. So, sir, are there any test series provided by you? I'll be starting a test series, but post December, right? So that's when I'll have the test series from January onwards, and that's when we'll have the test series. So yes, we have it, but not right now. Won't these all book studying create burden? Anubhav, again, Anubhav, the point is, like, in my class, I have strictly told my students not to purchase anything. I will tell you what to purchase, and I will not tell them anything, frankly. I'll just give them printout. My notes are sufficient, but then I'll give them some printout of certain specific pages of those books later on to just understand the language and comprehend more things. That's it. So that is up to me completely. But if somebody wants to study on their own, see, I'm not sure. All of you here are here for some information. So what if you don't want to join a coaching institute? Then for them, of course. So see, there is no match to understanding of these topics on your own compared to being, I should say, spoon-fed by teachers. It is going to be vastly different. The first one is difficult. It will be time-taking, definitely. Second one is slightly on the easier side. Does only NCERT? No. I mean, we are referring to optional Anubhav, not the GS paper. And even for GS papers, frankly, one thing, because right now I'm standing in an organization and you might view me as somebody who is, of course, I'll try to sell you something. But to be very frank, if any aspirant asks me outside as well, that should I opt for coaching or should I do self-study, I will 100% tell them, if money is not a problem, or even if money is a bit of a problem, or even if it's a great problem, I would still suggest you take coaching. The amount of knowledge that a faculty can impart in a given span of time, it would take you days and days and weeks and months to get that knowledge. That is why selections happen through this medium. Sadly, that's how unfair the market is, right? That you have to pay and shell extra bucks to just get basic information. So what we see on social media, that study NCERTs, sadly that's not true. NCERTs will just create a very basic idea of what the subject is all about, even in GS papers. Now, I can't vouch for, say, geography NCERT because they are supposedly great, but I can vouch for polity. Sadly, no. Even the best of books in polity, Lakshmikant, they fall short when it comes to a main examination. Completely short, right? So yes, what you can tell people freely is a very general idea, but there are a lot of intricate details that go into the preparation part, and that creates a difference actually. Okay, Sunita, we'll ask the team to contact you. What is the correct time in enrolling coaching? So I mean, after the study at least once, or when will be the best time as competing? No, no, no. See, if you are getting enrolled in the coaching institute, I don't think you should do anything. Just join. In fact, in Vishnu IAS, we also have a bridge program, a basic NCRT course, where we take small classes just to explain the basic NCRTs. If you are planning to join any coaching institute, here or anywhere, please don't study and come. It's okay. Not required at all. Nowadays, everybody, at least here, we make sure we start from the very basic and till the UPSC level. That is a journey that I will help you travel along with me. So don't worry on that. Can I go with NCRT or any standard books? Jetty Shiva, on your own. Yes, see, if you want, you can definitely start with NCRT. That would be great, right? To understand basic ideas of say history and geography and all. Even say polity, Indian constitution work is a great book to understand. But just to clarify, don't expect miracles out of it, right? For most NCRTs, the exam level is becoming very, very high because of increasing and intense competition, right? So because the competition is slightly high, NCRTs fail to suffice. NCRT is not meant for UPSC, right? And the idea is that NCRTs cover almost everything and give you a basic idea of everything, and hence became the Bibles of UPSC. But you have to get a lot more and quite different kind of information as well. That is where planned and strategic, very methodical help comes in the form of a coaching institute. Deepani, Anubhav, Deepani, see, the weightage, again, there are once, even if I mention some topics, right, it will be of no understanding to you because it's not the topic per se, but type of questions that become more important and what kind of questions are constantly asked. To give you a simple example, there's a topic called Rawls' theory of justice, which keeps on getting asked in different forms and manner, right? So there are multiple such topics. Listing out those small topics will have a problem of you thinking, no, this is what needs to be focused on. No, but to reach that understanding of the topic, you have to have some back study also. That's the problem, right? So don't feel I'm trying to avoid this question because I don't want to land you in a place where you have a misinformation, right? Already once completed reading. What have you completed reading, Anubhav? PSIR. Then a very good idea would be just go through all the PYQs. Find out all those questions or topics which have had a repetition. That's it. You have it. It's not for me or anyone to tell you. That's the beauty of this exam. That you have the previous year questions available online. You can simply download them, go through it, mark with the syllabus, and you will get to see certain topics being repeated over and over again. That would make the topic important, possibly. Please also list out myths in the market that we should not be trapped into. Okay, so this is the last question I will take. Myths in the market. JT Shiva, absolutely correct. This is sufficient. So the biggest myth in the market is that we need to excessively focus on current affairs to clear the exam. That's the biggest myth. What you have to focus on is the static portion. Current affairs will only give you the context of what topic is important for this year. What should you revise more? It will only give you examples. The hardcore points will come from static portion, and we will devote excessive time to our current affairs preparation, and we will neglect our GS static preparation, which will eventually show us in the exam with a slap on our face, the name not in the list. I'll give you a simple way to understand this point. We have our GS paper 1, which does not need any current affairs, history, geography, etc. Partly some contemporary knowledge of Indian society, etc. GS paper 4, ethics, does not really need current affairs. Essay paper does not need current affairs. In fact, most options don't need a lot of current affairs, including PSIR. The second part of IR requires some current affairs. So your optional papers 1 and 2 in most cases. 250, 250, 250, 250, 250. 1250 marks in most cases don't require current affairs at all, right? And then even paper 2, 60-70% of it is just hardcore static points. Remaining 30% is current affairs context. And paper 3, again, balance of current affairs and static portion. So most of your syllabus does not need current affairs. It needs knowledge of contemporary events in the last 3-4 years, and that is it. So out of 1750 marks, if less than 500 marks are devoted to having knowledge of current affairs, and I am devoting out of 6 hours of studies 4 hours every day into current affairs, how is it fair? It's not fair. But because current affairs keeps on changing every day, so if I can make this realization in your mind, if I can trap you that current affairs is very important, you will always depend on me. You'll come to me every day and you'll pay for it. That's the beauty of it. So this entire charade of current affairs being more important than they are, of course they're important, but not at the same level that they are being shown to be. This is the biggest myth floating in the market. If I can have a solid command over my static subjects, it is also going to be very easy for me to understand those current events without daily mugging up things, right? Okay. So I hope that was it. So let's meet in some other session, on some other day, on some other occasion. And if you join here, we can meet in the class. So till then, that is going to be all for me. Jai Hind.